Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel for another video today. Now, look, I know I did a tier maker just yesterday. I get it, I know, I'm spamming them a little bit, but that is because I realized I've never made this video before, which I thought I had, and that's going to be ranking all of the mainline story Pokemon games in order. For some reason, I swore that I did this video. Maybe I recorded it and something happened with it, but I thought I'd already done this video, so I went back and I looked on my channel, and I realized I've never ranked the Pokemon games. I've never ranked my favorite Pokemon game, and I was like, that's so weird. I swore I had done it. So I figured, you know what? Why not just do it now? Better late than never. You know what I mean? So we're gonna do that today. We're on tiermaker.com, just doing the mainline Pokemon games tier list. Pretty straightforward. I'm gonna go in order of release date, so like Generation 1 all the way through Generation 8 Sword and Shield. Just go through and give a brief explanation as to why I like it, why I dislike it, and where I place it, and that kind of stuff. As always with the tier list, S is the best, D is the worst. Pretty straightforward. But I do have to give the disclaimer. This is just my opinion. You absolutely do not have to agree with me. If you want to talk about it down below in the comments, feel free to. I will join in the conversation as well. But again, just my opinion. Let's keep it civil and everything like that. But with all the disclaimers out of the way, let's just jump into this, I suppose. So the first games released were Red and Blue on the original Game Boy. Now, I'm 20 years old, so technically speaking, I could not have enjoyed these as much as all the people a couple years older than me could have, because I wasn't in school or anything like that. But later on in my life, when I was like 6-7 years old, was the first time I played Red and Blue, and to be honest, at the time I did not like it because I had already played Leaf Green and Sapphire, because those are around the time that those games came out. But I played Leaf Green and Sapphire. I might not have been 6 or 7 now that I'm thinking about release years. I don't know. Doesn't matter. You get the point. I was young. But I had already played Leaf Green and Sapphire, and I loved every part about them. I thought they were sick games. I played Leaf Green for like 400 hours on the same save file. Probably the same thing, if not more, on Sapphire. You know, I just loved the games. And then I found out there was another one before these two called Pokemon Red and Blue, and it worked on my Game Boy Advance SP because my older sister had a copy of Pokemon Blue. So I played it, and I thought it was pretty bad. Because, I mean, I was already accustomed to, like, Sapphire and Fire Red, Leaf Green, where the graphics are better, there's more Pokemon, it just is more fun to play. But that being said, as an adult, I have gone back and played them, and my opinion really hasn't changed much, actually. I still think they're pretty good, and I think the franchise would obviously not be anywhere near where it is without them, but I don't really think that they're as great as people remember them to be. They've just aged pretty poorly. I'm gonna rank Yellow with them, too, because they're basically all the same. Actually, Yellow might be a little bit worse. I think this order is fine. Yellow's probably a little bit worse than Red and Blue original, just because I like the choice of the 3 starters and stuff personally, but you know, maybe that's just me. But overall, I think they're good games. We obviously needed them because we never would have gotten any of these if it weren't for them, but they've just aged pretty poorly at this point, to be honest. Next up is Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal. Now, where would I rank them? Tough to say. I think when I was younger, especially, I hated Gen 2. I thought it was dumb. I thought the Pokemon were ugly. I don't know why I was so against it, but I just really didn't like it at all. I thought Johto was just weird and boring. As an adult, again, my opinion hasn't changed that much. I think Generation 2 is still for sure my least favorite generation, but I don't hate it anymore like I used to. Actually, Gen 2 is probably not my least favorite generation. We'll get there though. But you know, I still don't think it's really that great. I think Johto has cool aspects. I think like the red battle at the end of the games is amazing. I like going back to Kanto just because it's Kanto. We all like it. We know it. But the rest is just kind of mediocre in my opinion. So I'd probably put them at C tier, all things considered. Crystal, again, doesn't change enough, so it gets ranked exactly with them. Next up was Generation 3, and that includes Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, Fire Red, and Leaf Green, because Fire Red and Leaf Green, while technically are based in the Kanto region, like the Gen 1 games, they are Gen 3 games because you do generations by console, not by like where it's located. For anybody who's new to the series or doesn't understand why it's ranked that way, there's your explanation. But like I said a little bit ago, I kind of alluded to it. I've played these games the most, bar none, out of all of these on the list, and I actually rank all of them pretty close to each other. Ruby and Sapphire, I will say I rank lower than the rest. I think they are A tier. I think they're very, very good games, but I just think they could be better, and that was obviously proven with Emerald, which I think is an S tier game. I think it does everything better than these two games. I honestly see no reason to play Ruby or Sapphire when Emerald is around, which is what they needed to do, I think, with the generation. I think it works really well, and it ends up being my favorite game out of the three for that reason, especially also because you can get a Rayquaza. Everybody knows it's a really cool Pokemon at the end of the day, especially like when you were younger, which I had Sapphire when I was younger, and I'm disappointed about it looking back now, but that's fine. And then Fire Red, Leaf Green, I would say are probably a little bit better than Sapphire and Ruby, only because it has that like allure of the Gen 1 games where it's based in Kanto, you know the storyline, but it's just improved in tons and tons and tons of ways. Just obviously graphics first and foremost, like it's a way different game compared to original Red and Blue, but I think overall they just improved pretty much everything in the game, made it really cool. They also added like the Sevi Islands towards the end of the game, which I really liked, just because when I was a kid, you know, you like going around and seeing new things in the game that you didn't have otherwise. So I thought it was great. Also, I'm gonna drop these guys down into B tier. I still feel the same about them, but I don't think they're as close to these games as that led it to be, because that made it look like they were close to Ruby, Sapphire, and Fire Red, Leaf Green, but I think the gap between these two, or these like few games, is quite a lot, so I'm gonna drop them down to B tier. Next up though is Generation 4, which was Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Soul Silver, and Heart Gold. Now this might spark some controversy. Again, I think Platinum is actually just an A tier game. I think Diamond and Pearl are B tier. I think Diamond and Pearl are just okay. There's nothing really inherently wrong with them, but it's just they fall into the same trap as Sapphire and Ruby did for Emerald. Platinum is just better in pretty much every way that you can think of, and it makes me want to just not play Diamond and Pearl because I can just play Platinum instead. The story is good in it. This was the first generation where story was like starting to get really, really deep. Generation 3 kind of started it, but the story was also kind of lame. I mean, just think about that Groudon Rayquaza fight in Gen 3. It was like so like obviously not thought through because it was just so underwhelming. But Gen 4 on the DS, they started to have the new engine and could do a lot more things, and I think especially in Platinum, that shows with the Giratina and the other world and stuff like that, and just having a lot of cool aspects involved brought it up to a higher level, especially in comparison to Diamond and Pearl. I think Platinum, you should just always play it before you play these two games. As for Heart Gold, Soul Silver, these are a lot of people's favorite game in the series. They are not my favorite game in the series, I will say. I think they're good. I think they go A tier, but I think they're just a little too slow. I mean, that's basically everyone's big complaint about it, is the game just feels like it's going really slow. And Pokemon games already feel like they're going slow, so for it to be significantly slower than the rest of the Pokemon games just kind of proves that point even more. Other than the slowness, I think they improved in every single way in comparison to the original Gen 2 games. Way, way cooler, way more variety, way more fun. I would never play these if these were available type of situation yet again. So I just feel like they have to go A tier for that. After Generation 4 though comes what has over time somehow, even though I didn't really like it at first, comes my favorite generation, Generation 5, which includes Pokemon Black, Pokemon White, Pokemon Black 2, and Pokemon White 2. Now these games, when Black and White originally came out, I kind of started falling out of love with Pokemon. I don't really know why. Looking back, there was no good reason for it, but I just did. And when Black and White came out, I was a really, really big hater of Generation 5. I don't know why. Again, I think I just joined in on that bandwagon of like the vocal minority that was like, oh, like Garbodor, it's just garbage. It's so uninventive. It's so boring. And then like 2-3 years later, I actually played Black and White 2 and realized just how amazing the Generation 5 games are. I say amazing, not in a light way. Like they are amazing. I think these were the games that basically took a step up above the rest. Like I think the Black, White, and especially Black and White 2, because I think Black and White 2 are better than Black and White. But this is where like things just like these are uncomparably the best games in my opinion. Like the storyline is incredible. This was the first time this is the generation where they introduced the most Pokemon, 156. I just did a quiz about that. You can go check out that video in the upper right corner where I tried to name every Generation 5 Pokemon. But either way, you know, this was when they added the most Pokemon that they have ever added. To this day, they haven't added that many Pokemon. 156 was a lot, and they did that because they weren't introducing any old Pokemon into the game, and people hated that at first. But as time went on, at least for me, I realized it's actually really, really cool, because this was basically like my Gen 1 Pokemon game. Because like I said, I was too young to really experience Red and Blue like a lot of people did, but and every other generation, like Johto, obviously you went back to Kanto, so you were able to get Kanto Pokemon, and Generation 3 you could get Pokemon from different generations. You know, it was fun. Same thing with Generation 4. But Generation 5 was the first generation where you couldn't get Pokemon from another region. It had its own amazing standalone storyline. The variety and designs of Pokemon were actually really, really cool, and you could use a lot of them in different playthroughs, and they were all good. And that vibe that it gives off is basically what everybody felt when they played Red and Blue for the first time. Just for older people or for younger people like me, this was my Red and Blue. It was my first experience with a Pokemon game where I just was like in love with every aspect of the game, and I wanted to catch all the Pokemon. You know, I wanted to use them all in different ways, just that kind of thing. Not to mention, I think, like I kind of said it, but the Pokemon designs in this generation are just really, really, really cool. I think some of my favorite Pokemon ever are from Generation 5, so I really appreciate a lot of the designs in Generation 5. And again, that killer storyline. This was the first time Pokemon did a storyline like that ambitious, and it worked really well, which is good, but also not good, because now as we move into Generation 6, right after this, they tried to continue that theme of telling a grandiose story and doing things like that. But this is where they started to basically miss the mark on every front. I've said it in many other videos, but after Generation 5, I really don't like the Pokemon games anymore. Now, as for Generation 6, which is Pokemon X and Pokemon Y, the reason I dislike them, well, there's a lot of reason, to be quite honest. But X and Y, I think, definitely go in C tier. I think they are incredibly, incredibly easy. Generation 5 was also great because the difficulty of it was pretty high. I mean, obviously, it's still Pokemon. It's not that crazy high. But in comparison to every other game that had come before it, Generation 5, especially Black and White 2, was the hardest Pokemon game that had ever come out. And off the skirt tails of that came Generation 6, where it was probably the easiest generation of all time. They gave you like 6 starters before the first 2 gyms. All the Pokemon that you found early game were super strong. They gave you just free Pokemon all the time. They gave you a free Mega Lucario, just things like that. I do appreciate the Mega Evolution that they introduced in this game. I think personally they should have stuck with Mega Evolution all the way through the Generation 8 games. I don't think there should be Dynamax. I don't think there should be just anything other than Mega Evolution. No Z moves, nothing like that, or Ultra Beasts. Just do Mega Evolution. I think it works way better. I think it's way cooler, and it's just way better of a concept because you bring back all those old Pokemon in just newer ways. I think it was way cooler. So I appreciate Generation 6 for introducing that, but I also just think the games themselves were not great. This is when I got into competitive Pokemon, however, and I think the Generation 6 competitive meta is fun, minus Xerneas, of course, but for the most part, it's really fun and I enjoy it. But Generation 6 games, I think, just really, really missed the mark. They had cool concepts and stuff, but the Pokemon themselves weren't that great design-wise. The games were incredibly easy. The story was way too big for very little payoff and not really that interesting, to be quite honest, especially in comparison to like Black and White 2. So this is where my love for the Pokemon games started falling off. But the next generation, Sun, Moon, Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. Now, the thing with these games is this. I think the original Sun and Moon is one of the worst Pokemon games to date. At the time, I wouldn't say that, but now after Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon came out, I absolutely would. Because Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon improved every single aspect of Pokemon Sun and Moon and just basically made them unplayable games. Because why on earth would you ever play that game when you can play Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon? Especially because Pokemon Sun and Moon were already bad games. The Pokemon they introduced were uninteresting and pretty bland and forgettable. The region itself was pretty bland and forgettable, just being like islands. It was a cool concept in theory. I just think the execution generation was really bad. This was the first time they had gone away from the gym leader system, and they did the island kahunas and the totem Pokemon challenges and stuff like that. And I like those aspects of the game, which is why I would actually rank Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon higher, because those aspects are nice. But Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon also have the exact same, battles where it's those systems in place. So though I enjoy those systems, there's again no point to play Sun and Moon because Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon have them. So Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon for me, I would rank as probably B. I like them a little more than the original 3 and Diamond and Pearl. That's because the difficulty definitely increased in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which I am all for. I have said it multiple times, but I think Pokemon games being harder is just better for like the community. I think most of the Pokemon, at least like on YouTube and stuff, those of us who enjoy it want it to be more competitive, more challenging. So Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon did that to Sun and Moon. They made it more competitive, more challenging and stuff. So I think that's what gives it the big boost. And like I said, they still have those island kahunas and all those systems in place that made Sun and Moon good, and they just do it better in my opinion. So I would definitely say just never play Sun and Moon. Just play Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. It's just a better game. That being said, it's still not anything higher than B tier, a mediocre game at best. The storyline continuation from Generation 6 is too long, too tedious, not interesting enough, just like the Generation 6 ones, but probably even worse in my opinion, because it's just so much story, man. Like way too much for sure. But they at least improved in a lot of aspects over Sun and Moon, so that moves it up for me. Like I said, I think Sun and Moon, the original ones, are probably the most obsolete games that you can play. They do what Emerald, Ruby, and Sapphire and Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum do, but to an even worse extent. Like, it's just absolutely, you should never play those games. There's absolutely not a single reason to. At least there are some reasons for Diamond and Pearl and Sapphire and Ruby, because the standalone games themselves, even without that little bit of extra storyline that Emerald adds, for example, are still fun. They can still be enjoyable. But Sun and Moon is just not enjoyable already, and there's a game that does everything than it better, so you should just play that game. Next up though, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire. To be honest, I wanted them to be really good games up here with the S tier. Obviously I love the Generation 3 games, I've said that before, but the Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire was just a gigantic letdown. The graphics were improved, which is great, but the storyline and the facial features and stuff like that of some of the characters were weird. It played really slow in comparison. The story itself wasn't like anything different. I just felt like it was really unnecessary and very underwhelming, and not the worst games of all time. Again, I just think I would never play them again over any of the games above them. Like, I'd much rather play X and Y or Ruby Sapphire before I played these games again. There's really just no point to them. They were ambitious with a lot of the systems again, and they just missed the mark in my opinion. I will say the one redeeming factor about it is, again, a lot of the added mega evolutions in these games were cool to see, at least, so that was nice. Next up, Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu for the Nintendo Switch. I actually really enjoy these games. I'd say they are A-tier games. While the storyline is not very great, I think the way you capture and the uniqueness of the Pokemon game puts them at an A tier for me. Like, obviously no other game in the series has done the capture mechanics and battling mechanics like that generation did, or well, I guess not generation, but this game did, and it makes it just really unique and pretty fun to play through, especially for the first time. I really enjoyed the first playthrough of it. After that, it falls off a little bit and I wouldn't revisit it too much, but I think it's unique enough for me, at least, to rank A. And then last but not least, Pokemon Sword, Pokemon Shield. I would rank them down here with Sun and Moon. I think they're not good. I think they are getting better with every new DLC that's added. Like the one they just did not too long ago, introducing all the old legendaries and stuff, I think is really cool. It adds a lot of aspects to the story, which makes it more fun. It adds a lot to competitive battling, which is basically the only reason I pay attention to Sword and Shield anymore, because the actual storyline is very underwhelming, boring, not unique. It's just like X and Y, but again, it's just not very good in my opinion. The actual battles themselves are incredibly easy, and it's just not fun, I think, personally. The region itself is cool. The ideas are cool. I don't like Dynamax again. I like Mega Evolution better. I think Dynamax is just kind of boring and overpowered for like the actual game itself, in my opinion. So just not a fan of it overall. That being said, at the end of the day, I don't absolutely hate any of the Pokemon games. I would play them all again at basically any point in time. I love Pokemon. I love love the franchise. Even if it's not my favorite game, I'll still play Sword and Shield again. Like, it's not that big of a deal because I just love Pokemon. But that is going to be it. That's my official final ranking here. What I am telling you is my favorite game of all time is Pokemon Black 2, White 2. I don't even think it's particularly close. Even though these 3 games up here are also S tier, I think there's a gigantic gap between Black 2, White 2, and Black and White and Emerald. It's just, these 2 games are just so much better than all the rest of the series in my opinion, and I don't think it's close. But either way though, guys, that is going to be the end of the video. If you liked it, leave a like. Like I said, if you want to talk about your favorite games, or if you agree with my favorite games, comment down below. I'd love to hear it. Either way though, if you are new around here, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications for when I post more videos just like this. It's free and you can always unsubscribe later, and it would really help me out. So I'd appreciate if you guys could do that. Either way though, guys, I thank you, I appreciate you, and I will see you in tomorrow's video. Peace.